chapter 10 and verses 14 through, probably 17. I don't know that we will actually hit 18 tonight. And here's where we're going to pick up from. I have several things, news that affects us. Do you ever think about some of these things? And I do like to get those things of prophecy. When I get an opportunity to preach, and I usually turn somewhere in there, because I do believe this, is the Bible has so much about prophecy that we need to bring it up and make sure that every few months that we're thinking about prophecy, that we're thinking about the coming of Christ. And if I don't bring it up, if the pastor doesn't, nobody else is going to. And it's not a negative, it's a very positive type of thing, because it's not to discourage us, it's to encourage us. It's to build us up, it's to strengthen our faith. And it is to allow us to see how God is working in the midst of what's happening around us. Now, some of the things that I've noticed and that are just kind of interest, but I've got to mention these. Number one was Israel's government supporting the sabbatical year, Shemitah. This is news that was really wild when I came across this a few weeks ago. I was really surprised. You know what that is? Every 7 years, by the law of Leviticus, the land is to lay fallow. It is not to be tilled, not to be toiled. When I was a kid, that's what farmers did every so many years, and I don't remember how often it was done, but they would let land go every few years. Why? So it'd rejuvenate, so it'd restore, because then the following year would be much better. Well, God said, in a principle of rest, and it's a principle for all of us, you need rest. You need a day that is different, that is set aside, that you worship God and you relax. And if you work 7 days a week, you're going to burn yourself out. They found the donkeys of the Grand Canyon will burn themselves out if they use them 7 days a week. When they were using them 7 days a week, they would start stumbling and falling and having accidents. And so they took the donkeys and they'd take them out 1 day a week, so they worked 6 days and 1 day off, and then the donkeys never had an accident. Amazing. Isn't that? We ought to learn from the donkeys. Anyway, we won't go there, but anyway, it's a principle. Well, Israel is doing that, and they announced that they're going to help fund. They've got millions of dollars they've set aside to help fund for the farmers to carry them over for the following year and doing that. Now, I thought that was interesting. Do you think God blesses and curses for obedience and disobedience? Do you think that he does? Well, I think so. What happened to Israel when they disobeyed God? Then God caused the curse to come upon them. They paid a consequence in that. And that's what's a sad thing about. Do you think that America is being cursed for its disobedience and what it's doing? Now, these are questions I'm not going to answer completely. I think that you just have to think about it a little bit. Is it being cursed by the fact that in the last few years, we have the worst storms, the worst floods, the worst tornadoes, more destructive hurricanes in a row in the last 10 years, more money, billions. We've had the worst drought in our history as a nation. We never had what's going on right now. And you think it's amazing. And California, they are having drought. And now you know about the drought that's been going on in the last few years in the West, I think. Drought's been going on for nearly 20 years in the West. But the last 7 years have been the worst. It's coming to a point of destructive nature. I can prove it to you. I want to read to you just a few things, and I might skip over some of the things, but I wanted to came across this last night, and I thought it was really interesting. Have you noticed at the food market how the prices are rising at an alarming rate? Well, there's many signs of this, that there's an epic drought on the western half of the United States that is a part, at least, a good part, caused because of that. Here's some of the facts that maybe you don't know about in California alone and in Nevada, because that's right beside. According to the Los Angeles Times, Los Angeles is now the driest that has ever been recorded, all the way back to 1800s. In 1877, when they started keeping, this is the driest it's ever been. There are 50 communities already that are on the verge of running out of water right now, and the summer's only halfway over. They're considering banning all watering of all lawns, washing of all cars, A $500 fine for the first time in offense, $1,000 the second fine, and the third offense is imprisonment. Social media has now started a new phenomenon in California, a drought shaming, taking pictures if you have a green lawn and putting it on Facebook. The economists or the scientists out there have said that Las Vegas alone is as bad as you, quote, as bad as you can imagine. If they don't find a way of getting more water, it will be soon out of business. Hallelujah. No, Las Vegas, the casinos are drying up. Okay, well, that's literally true in many other areas. Another one, Lake Mead has fallen to the lowest level of this century. Another one is Southern Nevada is paying people to remove their lawns and put in gravel. Isn't that amazing? AccuWeather has reported that this has been now for more than a decade a drought, that the Colorado River now is so depleted it no longer reaches the ocean. It dries to nothing. That blew my mind. I've seen the Colorado River, and that's where it is this summer. It dries up to nothing before it hits the ocean. Lake Powell is less than half full at this point in mid-July of this summer. It is costing the state of California $2 billion this year alone. Farmers in California are allowing over 500,000 acres to lie fallow, not planting anything. The lack of produce coming out of the state of California is ultimately affecting our food prices. California is one of the United States' biggest food producers, responsible for almost half of the country's produce and of nuts, 25% of our milk and cream, I didn't know this, 80% of the world's almonds come out of California. And it takes to produce one almond 1.1 gallons of water. Whoa. I thought, yeah. And so now almond trees are literally dying. They can't get enough water. The underground aquifers in California that they're pumping water out of is causing the I'm not sure if you say, I forget Spanish and saying Joaquin, I think it's the San Joaquin, Valley. It is sinking each year 11 inches. The valley is sinking. Well, that's nothing. Yellowstone Park is raising almost 11 to 12 inches per year. The volcanoes are pushing up. Kansas wheat, now this is outside, but still in the west. Kansas wheat harvest is going to be the worst that they know of in about 180 years. The massive dust storms have become a normal phenomenon in Phoenix area. People are actually starting to steal water in California from neighbors, and there's fines, and now they're having to have water. They're looking for water thieves. 80% of the state of California is experiencing either extreme or exceptional drought. And the National Weather Service has said this is the worst drought we probably have seen in our lifetime. Now, when I look at that and I think of that, and I think, okay, now I know why I'm paying as much as I am at the grocery store. That's one of the reasons. Is God blessing America? No. We are not seeing the blessing of many things. We are very fortunate to be here in central Ohio, where it's green around here, and we're getting water every week. And there's many blessings that we have I'm very grateful for. But as a nation, we do see a lot of things that are happening. Can I tell you just a couple other things? I might skip over some of these a little bit, but I want to just share a little bit more about the sabbatical. The 7-year sabbatical, and this is the second largest population of Jews in the world, is in the United States. Does God still hold the Jews accountable to keep the Sabbath as he has commanded in the sabbatical? Does he keep our nation accountable to that? Should we be honoring some of those same principles? Interesting thing has happened is 14 years ago, this coming year, in September 13th, September 25th of this year will be the beginning of the next sabbatical, Sabbath year. And when we think about that, and the whole next year will be a Sabbath year in the land of Israel, they will be letting everything go fallow. And here, and what they are to do on something like that is they can pick from the trees or the trees produce, but they do not sow the ground. And they live just off of whatever the ground produces. In the United States, you find many Jewish farmers who will be doing the same thing. Now, that does mean that means the orchards bring the pears and the peaches and all, they pick them and they eat from them and whatever is produced, but they do not cultivate the land. They let it rest. Did you know, though, that 14 years ago was also the beginning of a Sabbath year, and that was September 23, 2000. And the end of that year, we had the attack on 9/11. And then we had a 700.7% drop in our stock market on September 17 of 2001. 7 years later was the next sabbatical. That was the year that began then on September 29th, or when it ended, at the end of that year, September 29th, 2008, stock market crashed again. That time, 777.7 points. Exactly 7%. The next one will happen, the next time that it will happen, be 1 year from now, be the end of a sabbatical, and that'll be September 13, 2015. Now, what will happen on and around that? I don't know. But that'll also be the same exact time that the fourth of the Blood Moon series will be fulfilled. The fourth blood moon will be over Jerusalem, September 28th, 2015. Is there significance to those things? I'm just saying observe them. Watch them. There's significance I see in the past history. Will there be something then a year from now? Could be. The rate that we're going, yeah, there's something about big to happen. More Jews are migrating to Israel from France than ever before. You didn't know this, but the third largest, we are the second largest population of Jews in the world. The third largest population in the world is where? France. There's 500,000 Jews that live in France. There's not another country that has as many Jews next to France. They've been persecuted and they've been bombed, if you've listened, for a number of years, and this has been going on for a while, but the persecution is getting so bad because the Muslims are so strong in France now, and Jews are leaving, and they expect now 1% per year are leaving. 5,000 a year are leaving France and going back to Israel. Now, that's interesting. Did you know that, and people don't talk about it much, but Israel has now, their immigration is just as fast as it has been for years. Therefore, while it was really rapid and it kind of slowed down, it has picked up. They take in 10 to 15,000 people a month that come in from immigration from other countries. We have thousands coming from the United States all the time. I told you about a year or two, a couple of years ago, about a plane load came from Columbus, Ohio. 320 some went from here to go live in Israel because they felt God wanted them to go to the land of Israel. This is common stuff happening all the time. ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, if you never knew what that group was and what they're all about, and they're infiltrating now Gaza, and Gaza is now, with the Hamas, is trying to show they think they're flexing their muscles against Israel, and we have war going on this very night. Israel has attacked over 2,000 targets trying to stop Hamas. This is something that is Ezekiel 36, 37, 38. It is something that ISIS is one of the cruelest group of extremists that there is. It is led by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And some say Baghdadi. I've heard, I don't know which way. Wouldn't say it right either way, probably. Born in 1971, was caught in the Iraq War, was imprisoned by the U.S. Army, and then we released him in 2009 because he's such a well-behaved prisoner. And now has become the leading terrorist of the world, He is the one that they attribute to be the replacement for Osama bin Laden. He has 20,000 plus trained soldiers willing to die for the cause that have taken over 40% of Iraq. They now possess, including in that they have the town of Mosul. Mosul is the second largest city in Iraq. It is a city that there are 60,000 Christians. I was listening to a report this morning. That's where Christians fled because they found protection there. They have freedom of religion. There is not a Christian left in Mosul this morning. They are gone. They've been told, you either convert, you pay by giving your property up, or you die. And they're fleeing for their life. It is reported as that what they're doing is that the ISIS is going house to house, and they find a house that is a Christian. They've got a decision to make, and they put a letter, Aramaic letter on the door that represents Nazarene. That is, people of the Nazarene. And others, people of Jesus. And they are marked, and being marked people, they are running for their life tonight. Israel and Gaza invasion is just getting worse. There's a war happening. And God says in 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18, it says, in the last days you'll see many signs, many of these things, but wherefore, brethren, comfort one another with these words. Comfort. The reason why we have comfort is because we have a mission to do, a mission to share the gospel of Jesus Christ for what he has done. Here's a very simple outline of these few verses. I'm only taking a few verses tonight, and it goes like this. Verse 14, how then will they call on him whom they have not believed? How are they to believe in him whom they have not heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? And as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news, but have not all obeyed the gospel? For Isaiah said, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Very simple as this is a 5-point message, and that is what happens when people have never heard? What happens to them? In Romans here, Paul has already addressed in the first chapter, he has addressed the issue about those who have never heard the gospel. He's going to continue, though, in a different way here. In the first chapter, in chapter 1, verse 18, it says, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power, divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since creation of the world and the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. Now, does that answer, number one, what happens to people that haven't heard the gospel? If they haven't heard the gospel, they have seen the gospel by creation itself. But there is a need for people to hear the gospel too. Now, the Bible does say, if you will seek, you will find him. He has already made himself known, and he wants you to seek him. But how will they call on him whom they have not believed? He starts off. Now, the questions seem a little bit strange at first, but they are important, and we want to hit each one of these just in briefness. Righteousness. Righteousness begins with belief. To be righteous and be declared righteous with God is to believe in him. Believe, we talked about this morning, and what it means to believe in him. To believe in him is to confess that he is Lord and that he is risen from the dead. We know what that is. Righteousness happens when we confess him, he is Lord. Then we're declared changed. We're a new person from the inside out. It starts here and it works out into our life. It's not the outside that is changed and then it works its way in. It starts inside. If you watch anybody that accepts Jesus Christ as their Savior and Lord, it doesn't ever work that they clean their life up, get perfect, and then go to God. You would never do it because you wouldn't need God. It starts out that you come to the point you have a need. I need to be changed. I need to be cleansed. I need healing. I need God. I need forgiveness. And from there, when I ask for him to come in and to change me, then that work begins inside. And then it starts working out of my life, out into life itself. So yes, then a person has to believe. But you have to believe in something and engaging into intellect here to believe. You see, to believe, intellect is called into play. Like Isaiah says, come now, let us reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Come now, let us reason together. Think it through. How do you get rid of sin? How do you get rid of sin? It's not enough just to get emotional about it. Say, oh, it's not enough to have tears, not enough to have a feeling, but it is to believe that God is to believe that God is designed, to believe that God has a plan for us, to believe that God has said sin is real, is a birth issue, we're born into sin, is to believe that God is the only one that has a cure for sin. Now that's the belief. We have to begin there. It's not just believing anything, it's believing what he has done for us, believing that he can change us. But if they haven't heard this, how are they going to believe? There are many today that lead us astray, and we see so much of this. I'm going to bring up in the next message is that there's such a movement of ecumenical that, oh, just as long as we're together, brethren, and we've got conservative, so-called conservative groups, Kenneth Copeland, James Robinson, Joel Osteen meeting with the Pope in the last 2 months, and all coming out saying, glorious, man, we just all this, kumbaya, we just felt the Spirit of Jesus and everything. And yet the Pope is the first one to say in the speeches that he gives that, we are saved by following the traditions, by following, and praying. He said literally, praying to Mary. I have a quote on that, and I'll bring it. It's not just believing anything. It's believing the heart of the gospel. Jesus Christ is the only one that can give forgiveness. Number 2, how can they believe in him whom they have never heard? Something has to be taught. Something has to be taught. And the glory of the Christian message is not, we wander into somehow, we finally come to this, utopia life of Jesus and our life just gets all better. I struggled for a long time as a young Christian, just wanting to know where did I find the peace of really walking with the Lord and thinking there's some secret that I needed to be more spiritual, and there's others that seem to be growing faster and farther ahead of me. And it really came down to simply trusting him day by day. Learning to trust him and commit to him every day belongs to him, and that I'm not in control, but that he is. And I need to be teaching that. I need to be telling people of that. It is an objective truth. It is not just a subjective watching. It is something that not of a feeling. It's an historical event that is a truth that I cannot answer in any other way except God changes man. When I listen to a testimony, I see a person change from night and day, and I say, look where he was and look where he is now. I say, that's not something I can explain by human. That's something that only God could do. That's what we want to show, and that's what we want to share. That's what we want to share. All I can explain is my faith is not because I have great faith. My faith is because my God is great. The only testimony you have is how great your God is, not how great you are. The third thing that he says there is, how are they to hear without someone preaching? See, God always uses people. You know that? Something, just a note here. Someone has done something to cause you to come to Christ. I doubt there's anybody here in the room. If there is, please raise your hand and tell me it's true, that I'm not true. I doubt that it was YouTube, television, radio, Twitter, or a blog that got you to Jesus. It really wasn't, was it? But it's someone, a person. Now, you see, in all the communication advantages that we have and the media and technology and everything, God still chooses the simplicity of a human being. He says it this way in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. He says, but God has chosen what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. You see, the world doesn't think that we really have a good method of reaching others. They really think that we'd do better if we just got on YouTube and did more spreading the gospel. Now, I'm not saying God doesn't use that. He does. But he uses a man or a woman somewhere in the process. Tracts are good and printing the Bible and all that, but it's a changed life people want to see. That's what they really want to see. So God has chosen what is foolish to the world to shame the wise. God has chosen what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God has chosen what is low and despised. You see, God has used the simplest of the simple. Anybody here? Okay, you didn't raise your hand. I'll raise mine. All right, isn't that awesome? God uses the simplest of the simple. You see, that's what explains that a 5-year-old can accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. But the adult will sit back and say, well, I just don't know if that's real. Well, I was 5, and I still love Jesus. Yes, a 5-year-old can. The simple and the lowest, the simple of the simple can know Christ. Now, in that, God didn't choose anything but laborers that he has sent. He has sent out the apostles, he did, to go with the gospel, to share the gospel. And there's nothing more effective, than a testimony of a man or of a woman that tells you, let me tell you what Jesus means to me. Number 4, how are they to preach unless they are sent? Who sends them? God does. Who sends them? God does. God sends men. God sends women. God calls them. John 15:16. You do not choose me, but I choose you and appoint you that you should go and bear fruit. Matthew 9:37-38. The harvests are plentiful, but the laborers are few. For therefore, pray earnestly the Lord of harvest, send out laborers into the harvest. What is he saying? He's saying God uses men. And it's men being sent. And you feel the burden that God is calling you to do something for him. You do it. You do it. Do you get it? It's God's work. He calls, he sends. It's not your work. You're not the head. I'm not the head of this church. Tim's not the head of this church. God is. It's God's church. Always has been. Always will be. I think the most marvelous story in the Old Testament is the story of Isaiah chapter 6, where he comes, he sees a vision of God, and he comes in the presence of God, and he sees the holiness of God, and he sees the seraphim gathering around God, and God yells out, he says, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And he is so touched by the reverence and the awe and seeing heaven, the display, and you can almost see, he goes, I do, send me. That's what it says, Isaiah 6:8. Then I said to him, here am I, send me. When you get a picture of the holiness of God, when you get a picture of what he's done for you, when you get a picture of how precious he is, you will exalt him. And you'll say, Lord, use me. Use me. Then he brings this conclusion, number 5. How beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. Now, that's the interesting phrase here. And I have to hit this briefly. When you get verse 16, it says, but they have not all obeyed the gospel. Not everybody hears the gospel, obeys the gospel. Does that ever get discouraging? You ever witness somebody, share with them a little bit, and you say, man, they just don't listen to me. Yeah, it does sometimes, you know. And he quotes from Isaiah, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? That's a quote from Isaiah 53, verse 1. Who's listened? I tried to preach, Isaiah says. I've been preaching and preaching and preaching. I don't think anybody hears me at all. Isaiah 53 is one of the most powerful chapters of the entire Old Testament and the prophecies of Jesus Christ, and there's so many have been saved out of Isaiah 53. But we won't go there. How beautiful, then, he says, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. Now, I thought about this. He compliments the preacher's feet. Did you notice he did not compliment the preacher's suit or the preacher's hair or what hair he has or doesn't have? Doesn't compliment how handsome the preacher is. Does not compliment anything about his lips or his eyes or the stroke of his jaw. Do you know that? But how beautiful. Aren't those gorgeous? Have you ever seen anything so good looking? Look at that. Isn't that amazing? He picks out the homeliest little thing that he can find on me and says, how beautiful are the feet. Why the feet? Because the feet is what takes you to go. Get off your and go. And the only way you go is on what? Them homely old toes, feet. Isn't that amazing? He uses it. See, he's using it's a neat little illustration that he's using there, but it's a good one there. You ever think about how simple it is and yet how complex it is? Did some lighting change in here. Let me just finish up with this. Our time's up. And in doing that, you know, it's so simple that you go over and there's a switch over there. It's a new switch on the wall, and it does that part of the effect lighting over there. Why is it clear over there, not over there? I don't know. This building has funny wires, but that's where I found the wires. So, okay, that's just the way it is, okay? We have switches everywhere. Anybody that knows anything about this building knows every wall has another switch. Now, in what's really interesting about that is this. It seems so simple as all you have to do is hit a switch and light comes on, right? Isn't that a marvel? It's simple. Simple as that. Nothing to it, right? But actually it's a very extreme, complex process. There's a power plant behind somewhere. There's a generator. There's miles of transmission lines. There's transformers. There's voltage regulators. There's overrides. There's power surge protectors. There's fuses. There's boxes. There's even miles of wires in this building. And then there's a switch. And then there's a light bulb. Isn't that amazing? And all we take for granted, we just go over and go, and we think that's it. And you know, sometimes we take the gospel kind of that way. You know, it's so simple. Oh, it's a process. It's very complex. It's very powerful. Oh, what if they don't listen? What if they don't listen? I know that that's a sad thing if one does not listen, but there's some that don't. Here's the thing. I read a story on Ray Stedman. Ray Stedman is one of the greatest preachers I ever followed through my younger years, and he's gone on to be with Jesus for many years now. Pastor down in Southern California, and led a great ministry. Just the way he preached is a style that I really loved. And I would listen to some of the things that he would do, and I've got every book that he ever wrote. I have them. They're out of print now, and they just fall apart. And he tells the story of a man that he led to Jesus Christ that was a very wealthy man, substantially wealthy. And he's just got on fire for Jesus, and you know, and his life had been changed. He's trying to witness to people, and he said, Pastor Ray, I have a hard time. So many people reject Jesus. I don't get it. Why do they forget? Why do they reject him? Why don't they get it? And so he tried an experiment one day. He wanted to do something, and he wrote out a check for $1 million, put cash, $1 million. And he went to a dozen friends of his, that he knew were not wealthy. And he said, you know what? I consider you a friend of mine, and I'd just like to do something for you, and I'd like to give this to you. And they would open it. They'd look at it. Is this for real? Yes, it's real. It's a personal check. It's good. And they'd take it, and they'd fold it and say, I'm sorry, but I can't take that from you. He said, I went to 12 people, and 12 people gave me the $1 million back. And he said, Pastor Ray, I feel like that's the way God has offered $1 million offer. And so many people say, I'm sorry, I can't take that. He asked some of them, Why can't you accept that? Why can't you? Why? And some would say, well, it's just too much. Some would say, well, I'll feel obligated to you. And some would say, well, I want you to make me feel like I'm not adequate, that I'm not self-sufficient enough. And some would say, well, it just hurts my pride. And they'd be suspicious. And they're so self-centered and self-dependent that they couldn't receive a gift of $1 million. There's nothing I have to share except one thing, and that's the great gift of the forgiveness of God. The forgiveness of God is the greatest thing I have to offer to somebody. Recently, in just closing, my wife and I had an anniversary, and we went up to Berlin and spent one night. That's all we afford. And we bought a couple of gifts and all. And we ran into something, and she said, I want you to get it. And I've never worn a bracelet before in my life. And like somebody said, well, it's a manly one. Anyway, yeah, it's a big chain. But anybody that's paid attention to it, what really drew to me was this. It's got one word. It says the blood and the cross on each side, but there's one word across here. One word. Forgiven. And it struck me when I saw it that, Glenn, that's the only testimony that is valid. Forgiven. Remember it. It tells me where I've been and tells me where I'm going. Got it? Get it? Tells me where I've been and it tells me where I'm going. You've been forgiven. You have Jesus. You've got everything. How beautiful are the feet